is Mike, and welcome to day 2 of Robotech Week at the Titanium Hangar. What we're going to talk about today are the vehicles and everything else that is not exactly a figure, and we're going to do figures tomorrow. So day 3, Retro Wednesday, will be all of the figures made by Matchbox. So getting into this, we're going to talk about these vehicles. I'm going to break it up into 2 parts. What I have in person, and then what I don't have, I'll show pictures of and talk about just a little bit. That'll be the second part. And then I'm going to tell you why I have not made a Robotech video since 2018. That collection I had in 2018, I sold it off. Talk about why and more coming up. Okay, so the first thing I want to talk about is that in 2018, I traded a friend of mine some stuff for his vintage Robotech collection. That was a pretty nice collection. I made a video about that, but then I got a copyright claim on that. Turns out that after a few years of being irritated with that, it was actually a scammer they called Yam11 2003. And anyway, I started making a video to slam Harmony Gold, but it wasn't Harmony Gold. Harmony Gold did not attack me for it, but that was why I haven't made a video since 2018. Now, I've sold that collection off because I wasn't going to be making videos about it. I was just didn't have a place to display it, and then I've started getting pieces back here and there in lots that just kind of randomly showed up, and I started building a collection back. So I said, hey, you know what? Why not just go the extra step and finish this collection out? So that's where I am with collection 2.0. It's pretty exciting and a lot of fun. Now I have nostalgia for not only the couple of things I had as a child, but a couple of things, well, the almost complete collection I had in 2018. First thing I want to talk about is the Matchbox Robotech Armored Cyclone cycle. Now, the thing about this is I had this cycle as a kid, and it's one of the nostalgic things for me. I also had Dana Sterling. Is the only figure I had as a kid from Robotech. I had Dana and this cycle, and that was it. So getting into this though, it is a pretty cool little cycle that's going on. And back in the day, I just made all my Joes or Star Wars or whatever was 3.75 to ride this cycle. It is a cool looking cycle. Scott Bernard, and this is a really messed up Scott Bernard I've got over here, but I have a mint on the card one that got cheaper even than him. So I will be showing that tomorrow in day 3 of the figure. So today is about the cycle, and it is pretty cool. It's supposed to have a like a kickstand. Those are broken on most of these, so getting one with an unbroken kickstand is pretty impressive. But I like this one because it has all the stickers. These little pieces end up falling off and breaking off. Also, most of my stickers are in pretty good shape and pretty good condition. You do have some chrome accents, and I will eventually use my chrome pins to touch all of that up. But things are moving really fast with Robotech, and I just wanted to make this video and move to the other 8 or 9 full collections I'm going to be doing of Retro Wednesday. So anyway, let's look at this box real quick, and the box itself is pretty cool. Somebody bought this at Kmart for like under $4. I remember those days, and things were so much fun back then. This thing today would probably be $25, or would be a Mattel Creations, or would be a HasLab, because I mean it's just way too big to be on a store shelf, right? The HasLab or Mattel Creations in 2023 when that comes up. So it does show Scott Bernard on the back, but is not included with this. It is a separate purchase, and you did not get the figure until Harmony Gold came out with it years later. So still interesting for that. One of my favorite pieces of memorabilia from Robotech, although I never got to see the show back in the day. Here we go with the 8-inch Scott Bernard and his Cyclone cycle. Now the thing about this is it does transform. It does go on him, and I will not be doing that in this video. There are so many parts to this, and I'm missing a couple of minor pieces, but like these pieces pop off and they go on his forearms, which is kind of cool, and just kind of like that. But my ultimate goal here was not to pop that off and show things. It was to show the size difference between these. So this is much bigger, much larger, because it accommodates an 8-inch figure, and it's a pretty cool idea, pretty interesting. It is a transformer, which a lot of these Robotech figures and these mechs do transform. So next up is Dana's hover tank. And I do want to say that this hover tank is pretty interesting, very fragile. I'm a little scared to do anything with it. But look how big it is compared to a Dana Sterling figure. And back in the day, I didn't even know she had a hover tank. I never saw this in the store. Or if I did, I knew it was way too expensive to ask my mom to buy it for me, or for me to like have to try to save up to get it. So it's one of those things. But with this, I'm going to show you a few things about it. And first of all, with the front, here's his head, and I don't think it moves. And then you have sort of ratchets in the arm, and it kind of goes around like that and ratchet it out to the side. Then you can extend this gun, which is kind of cool, but you have a very similar kind of thing that happens on the other side, and then the hand goes up and down for the transformation. I will not show the transformation because I feel I'm going to break it. And there's just, with the first one I had, I was a little scared of that one, but this one feels even scarier. It is 4 years later, so I'm not going to mess with it. I'm just happy to have gotten one. Does have this kind of tail pieces missing on a lot of them. A lot of them I passed on was missing that tail piece, and we get over here to this side. Now you can kind of see it looks like the same thing as the other arm, but what's different about it is that you have this gun. Now this gun is a transformable gun, and then you can put it into here, shove it into the arm. Okay, let me see what I'm doing here. All right, so now you can have it come out or go in. That sounds scary. Everything about this feels scary and breakable. Now, you can transform him into a mech. Now I'm going to put a picture up. I hope I remember to put a picture up of showing what he looks like when he's transformed into his armored up mech. And you're going to see Dana Sterling sitting in there and all that kind of stuff. So pretty cool overall. But this is scary, fragile, big. One of the bigger ones. We're going to go from big to small going forward. So next on the agenda of going largest to smallest is the Officer's Battle Pod. This is Zendrati Officer Battle Pod. Now, the weird thing is that in both the pods, that are the Zendrati pods, they show just Zendrati warriors, but this is an Officer Battle Pod. So I've seen people showing off either a Zor Prime or a Korg in their cockpit. So you can open this up. It's not that easy. And you can see that you have a Zor Prime. Is that Zor Prime? I'll know more tomorrow when we do those. Yeah, I think it is. And he does have an interesting weapon, which we will see later, actually bigger in part 2 of this video. And so one thing about this is that it is really cool and freaky and funky looking. Now I have 2 of the Matchbox versions, or at least what it says on the leg is the Matchbox. So if you were like, which version do I have, you want to look for the writing. And on this particular one, the writing is on the inside of, which leg? One of these legs right there. So there's the writing, and if we can zoom in on it, it says Matchbox, says the year, and it does not have an amended extra like 1994 for Exosquad or any of that kind of stuff. So, and I do think actually one of these I have the front missiles on wrong. So now this is one of those that has some trouble with standing. So there are there's some spring mechanisms in there and some spring going with the feet. So there are some issues with trying to get this thing to stand. But when you do get it to stand, you get the equilibrium just right. It looks really cool and amazing. So I'm gonna take one out of the way and I can kind of show how this thing looks. So it does look really awesome when you get it positioned properly in its counterbalance. And that's the other thing, is you have to keep it balanced. And that is a challenge. But see, on my shelf, in my display, it's going to look amazing because it's going to have a back wall to butt up against, and it's not going to have a problem. So one of the articulation here, we have the arms that go side to side. We have ball joints on these guns. You have ball joints on whatever these whisker guns are. You have an up to down on this giant cannon right here. We already saw the canopy, and the canopy also has an antenna on it, another one of these on this side. And so with that, the legs themselves, they have a joint here, here, and the feet, and there's spring mechanisms in there. So it is a challenge to get it to stand. When you get it to stand, it looks super freaking awesome. So next up on the list here is the Tactical Battle Pod. This is a Zentradi Tactical Battle Pod, meaning it's from a cross era. I'm not a Robotech expert in any way, shape, or form, but I kind of know my way to navigate through most of this stuff. But I had this back in the day. Mine was broken like crazy in so many places, and both of these are in a little bit better condition. So this is the only thing that the collection 1.0 that I got rid of was bad, and these are so much better. Now, looking at both of these, my Matchbox one, I think it looks so much better because it doesn't have all of the space mud stuff on it, but this one is still really, really in rough condition. The only thing I think that's better is the rear antenna that it has. It does have the rear antenna. So what I probably will do is seek out more parts as time goes by and I find them for cheap, or find a parts one and just kind of fix these two up to be perfect. But yeah, this thing is rough overall. Now, as you can see inside here, we can see the Zentradi Warrior, which in my opinion makes a lot more sense to have the Warrior in there instead of, because it's not an officer one. You can also see inside here. This is Matchbox. We're gonna sort of set it aside, even though it is a little prettier because it's rough. And this one here, I think I can handle this one a little bit better without maybe breaking anything. One of the ways to know that you've got the Exosquad reissue, which is what this one is, first off, the writing on this one is like right on the side of his face. And the camera's not going to pick all that up. You know, I have no faith in my camera. I should. Or I could do another little job on it. Anyway, that's where you find stuff right there. And also the speckle. You see like there's like a speckled, it's like some light black spray paint over all of it, over the whole freaking thing. That's how you know that it's a later one. So, and I don't think all the parts are completely compatible because I've been trying to toy around with it, but still comes with these giant cannons up top, and then these smaller, I guess they're laser blaster whisker pieces right here. You have an opening canopy which has, so you've got the eye on it, and it has a sort of translucent piece in there which is sort of light piping in a way, and then you open this up and you can see that you've got the figure inside here. Now this figure barely fits. You gotta like cram him in, but he fits. Now the thing is, this is Exosquad. So why did they reissue all these for Exosquad? Well, I'll kind of show you. Here's an Exosquad figure right here, and you can pull the figure out, and he would be about the right size to fit right in there. So it fits Exosquad figures. Kind of a genius move, if you ask me. So they don't have to make more Exosquads. They can just sort of copy what was made before. Really, really cool in a way. But a lot of people hate the Exosquad. A lot of people hate the Exosquad versions of the Robotech. And I just like them because it gives you more options. As a modern day collector, hey, I don't want to spend $150, $200, $300. Let me get the Exosquad version. A bit of articulation on this guy, side to side right here. And you can take the legs all the way to the back. You do have spring loaded right here. So this is a mode of flying through the air or whatever, and that works. So kind of cool. You do have levers on the back. I imagine it looks like figures can hang off of the back and stuff, or maybe one of these other mechs can hold on to it and ride along with it. So still kind of an interesting design overall. You don't see this in anything else. There's really nothing else other than Robotech, and then of course the copy that was Exosquad that uses this design. Cool design, interesting design. Ever since 2018, I've kind of wanted this one back, and one that wasn't like shattered like the one I had. Next up on the list, we have the Invid Shock Trooper, which I have both versions. Now, it says it's Matchbox, but it might actually be Harmony Gold. Personally, I don't care. I kind of like this purple better than this purple. This is the Exosquad with kind of a dirty paint job to it and all of that kind of stuff. But we're going to get into looking at them. And so seeing the difference between the two, you have brighter greens, duller greens, brighter purples, duller purplers, and then the way the paint is applied is a little bit different on these. So I'm going to get this one out of the way. I kind of don't like the Exosquad one on this one. Now, for most of these, the Exosquad one is just fine. I think that either the Harmony Gold or the Matchbox is the better one because I like the colors better. So Let's get adjusted on this guy here. So what all does this do? Well, he has a adjustable guns at the top, and then of course the arms move and the legs move, so you can adjust him to some minor different poses. Looking right here, you can see that this opens his little claw, and you can claw, which doesn't make any sense but here's Zor Prime, and they wouldn't be clawing Zor Prime, by the way, but maybe they would. And it looks like he's gonna have a little snack right there. But maybe Zor Prime doesn't need to be clawed. Maybe he needs to pilot this thing. So we're going to open this up. Put it in there. Now you see these stickers and all the detail. And this thing looks beautiful, by the way. Personally, this is the second one I got. And I didn't go after multiples at all on these vehicles. It literally was the first one I got I wasn't happy with. So I got another one down the road. Now, this is almost impossible to fit him in there. It is just... I don't know. Can I get one of those other figures in there? Really, it's almost impossible to fit them in there. Now, some of these have really loose rubber bands, and you could just shove them in there and it'll be fine. But a brand new figure, tight, I mean, this guy is tight, doesn't fit in there. So that's a problem. And there's, I mean, can I stick the feet like... There he is, crammed, and everything is literally crammed. It will pop right up when I... Look, it won't close on its own. So, anyhow, that was an issue that I had with the first one, but still really cool. But there's one other Invid Scout Trooper that does not hold a figure, and you're going to see it kind of getting lumped in with the 7-inch figures that don't hold a figure. And I just figured I'd kind of touch on that. It's purplish, not purple, but it's more like a mauve. Is it mauve? It's kind of a burgundy, kind of a red. But that one itself is smaller. I'm not going after that one because it doesn't fit a figure and it's not really fitting on my shelf. I'm kind of out of display space for Robotech, so that one did not make the cut. So the last vehicle, which is the smallest vehicle, is the Bioroid hovercraft. It's just a hovercraft. Now, the thing about this one is that this one is probably one of the cheapest Robotech things to acquire and pretty easy to acquire, and it does look pretty cool overall. Now, it wasn't really made for this character, but this is the character featured on the box, which is really strange and really weird. It's actually made for a much bigger mech kind of character that doesn't really fit it very well either. So it's kind of one of those weird things that kind of happened in this line. We have like a TV, computer monitor, and you know, they really predicted the future. Like, we're gonna have flat panel LCDs in the 80s. They were kind of predicting that in all these cartoons and shows. Got a couple of guns. I guess these are a couple of guns right here, and that's what it looks like. Now he has foot pegs. These are some wheels that aren't turning. They're supposed to be like ball bearing kind of things that are not turning. And yes, this is indeed Matchbox. I don't know if I don't think Exosquad reissued this, or even Harmony Gold. So super still available, even though it was only one run back in the day. Cool. Sort of. If you're a completist, you got to get it. I really don't see... I think the figures look better just by themselves. Now we're getting to the 7-inch figures. Now, this one here is what I think is called the Quadrono Battalion, and then the other one, the Buturo Battalion, is the green one. And I'll show a picture of the green one. Now, the thing about this is that this guy is 7 inches tall. He has cannon that's quite articulated. I don't know if there's any articulation in the head. He's got a little front cannon right here that rotates, and there's no figure that fits in it. Now the idea is this is a mech that fits in there. You can have a jet engine on the back, not a ball jointed legs, just front and back, very little, and a little bit at the knee, a little bit at the toe. So a little articulation to it, but I'm missing his weapon. Now the green guy, I'll show a picture, and he's going to have his weapon and all that kind of stuff. But let's get a size comparison in here so we can kind of see how big this dude is. So I think in the show, he'd be like the size of the hover tank, maybe. So this really isn't scale, and it really doesn't make sense that these figures would fit in there. But on the other hand, it would sort of make sense, kind of like the Cobras. Was it the snake? That was the armor that they would wear, was just a little bit bigger than the character. The character just kind of crawled inside of it. But still, For me, in my mind, this is a lower price point to build an army for kids, to have an army of mechs to fight each other without having to shell out the 25 or 35 or $45 for the bigger ones. You can get these at a smaller price point, under $10, which is actually kind of a smart move. They're big enough that they're bigger than these guys, and they're about the same size as Zendrades. They're still bigger than Zendrades, but I don't think they're from the same era. But again, I'm not a Robotech expert. I'm just having fun collecting these and talking about them. Now let's get into looking at the rest of the stuff that I don't have coming up. Okay, so getting into the rest of this, I am going to go biggest to smallest like I did before, starting with the SDF-1 playset. Now, if you look at the SDF-1 playset, this thing is pretty big. You can see the hover tank in the back right, letter to I, that I already showed, and then you can see some of the other stuff that I showed. Now, these are some prototypes, and with the prototypes, you have different colorations to them and all that kind of stuff, but you can see up to the top left, we have an SDF-1, so the E is an SDF-1 that is a transformable SDF-1, so your imagination, so 1/3000th scale SDF-1. Now, the playset itself is just a small bridge. It's the bridge, which is a very, very small tip of the piece on the top of it when it's in its flight mode. But you get to see a few things on here. The Bioroid fighter's in this, which we already talked about in the jet fighter video and all that kind of stuff. On the left, you see a whole bunch of figures we're going to talk about tomorrow. But let's see what else this thing looks like. Here's a bit of a grainy picture of kind of a stock photo of what the outside of this SDF-1 playset looks like. It is pretty impressive. I think it is a cool playset. And I get some of these kind of USS Flag vibes from looking at it with the coloration of it, the way it has the antenna on top, the mast array, and all that kind of stuff, and then some guns and all that. So still pretty cool. Now, the last one that sold on eBay actually sold for $2,400. It had a couple of extra parts to it that probably shouldn't have been included with it. Should have been included with the other listings that they had. But $2,300, $2,400, really, you had tax and shipping and all that kind of stuff. You're getting close to $3,000. This is expensive. I don't think it's worth that much, in my opinion. I'd be in on it for like $500, but they're so rare that you're paying for the rarity. Next, we have the SDF-1 transformable one. We saw it in the picture there. Now, this is kind of just a quick cutout of all three forms. There's also a miniature version of this. So looking at this, if you look at the battle mode on the left, on the right is the attack mode, the bottom is the cruiser mode, and the cruiser mode at the bottom, the playset itself is literally just the bridge, the very, very top centerpiece, as you can see right there. So that makes sense on how you do something that is this big, that's considered 1/3000th scale. So I am playing a little bit of guesswork with the scale, but I think the Alpha Fighter would be the next biggest after the SDF-1 transformable one, other than, of course, the hover tank, which I've already reviewed. Now, this thing is very similar to Jetfire or the Bioroid fighter in the fact that it has 3 different modes. Now, you have the robot mode, you see the green, it shows a mini Alpha Fighter, but it does similarly transform into that, so that is pretty cool. But then you also get a jet mode, so here is the jet mode that it can transform into, which is kind of cool. Actually, you might argue it's cooler looking than Jetfire, but it does not warm my heart the way Jetfire does. Still, it's cool. One day I might get my hands on this one, but it's not something I have room to display, so I'm not going to be going after it so hard. Next up is this Robotech CYCLONE, and so this is similar to Scott Bernard, but it's not the same one, and it's a different motorcycle, different rider, and all that kind of stuff. So I only put this in here because it seems to be associated with that Alpha Flight one, and so I don't know where this came from, but it is made by Matchbox, and it's one that I don't see anywhere else but Dallas Vintage Toys. So my buddy Sean had a picture for me at Dallas Vintage Toys for this one, so it looks pretty cool, something you might want to pick up if you're interested in this stuff. So next up, we are bouncing around between different eras of the Robotech franchise from across to this one here, which is the Bioroid Invid fighter. Now, this is another one of those that was like the last thing we looked at, 7-inch scale, and this would be the one that should be actually riding on that hovercraft. But still, you do see his weapon looks very similar to, I believe it was Zor Prime's weapon. It's just a much larger version of the Zor Prime weapon. So this thing does look pretty cool, and if you're in on the 7-inch scale and building up an army of mechs, then this would be the way to go. So speaking of building an army of mechs, we showed the picture of the Invid Scout Trooper already compared to the Shock Trooper, how it's smaller and all that kind of stuff. We just went over the Bioroid Invid fighter, and then of course we did already talk about the two Zentradi power armor battalions, the green and the blue. Now at the top though, we have these smaller vehicles, the Spartan, the Gladiator, the Excalibur MK6, and the Radar 10. So now the thing about those are 7-inch, similar to what we saw with the battle armor. We saw that in person, similar to the Bioroid Invid fighter, and I guess similar to the Scout Trooper, but that thing is super bulky. Now with these, they all have a little bit of features and functions and some things that flip up and show off missiles and guns and that kind of stuff. But these were all remade into tiny die-cast metal ones and put out for... I don't know if Matchbox made them themselves or if it was just the Exosquad with Playmates, but Exosquad made some. Here they are on the back of the Exosquad card back, and it shows that they made all of those in 2 different colors, in die-cast, made really small, about 3.5 to 4 inch. Probably 3.5 inch is the right size. Those are die-cast, but these are interesting. If you're in on this, I'm not in on this at all, but it does exist, and I figure I want to talk about it. But one of these does not show up on here. So one of the die-cast ones that doesn't show up on the back of that was, I guess, only a Macross only kind of deal, was the Mach 2 Monster Destroyed Cannon. It comes in red or green, and it is kind of a pricey little die-cast one. So I've seen some other die-cast ones broken, so the legs seem to have some movement to them, but I do not see this one made in the 7-inch scale. Maybe I'm just missing it. I can't find any information about that. I only see it made in this die-cast scale, which is kind of cool, like an add-on. Like you could put cannons around, extra cannons here and there. So it is pretty cool in that respect, but it is a tiny die-cast, and it should be able to house a 3.75-inch figure, and so should the 7-inch figures. But again, this is a small die-cast. And as we talked about yesterday, the Robotech fighter that they made, this one actually came out also for the Exosquad, and it's pretty cool, but it doesn't transform. It's a non-transformable version of the Robotech fighter. It would have been nice to have this transforming into an actual bot, and that would have been cool. So maybe one day we'll get one, but to this day I don't know of one of these that actually holds a figure. So I hope you enjoyed this look at the vehicles for Day 2 of Robotech Week on Titanium Hangars. So these are some pretty cool, interesting vehicles. These designs are different than anything else that is out there, more or less. There's modern takes, modern iterations that are far more expensive than trying to even collect the vintage. Some of the vintage ones are pretty expensive too. But looking at it overall, it is a lot of fun to look back on, and looking forward to tomorrow, Day 3, the figures. Like and subscribe to Titanium Hanger out.
Carry out my orders. Yes, sir.
The Micronian ship has been sighted, and we will begin our operation when they launch their fighters. Remember, wait for my command.